American slavery was, one of the most brutal aspects of human history. It was something that was so incomprehensible. It's hard to understand the level of human cruelty. Slavery, second only to the Holocaust, stands as one of the most abhorrent chapters in human history. Its unimaginable brutality endured for a staggering 4 centuries, spanning 4 generations. So, what are some of the most brutal facts about slavery that we should know about? Yes, you heard that right. If you have watched the movie Roots, it provides a poignant portrayal of the deep tragedy surrounding slavery. It is indeed a sorrowful realization that many individuals who became enslaved were sold and betrayed by their African brethren. Greedy chiefs sought to profit from their people's suffering by selling them to white traders. Disturbingly, personal vendettas and conflicts within the African communities often resulted in people being traded as a means of settling scores. It is truly sickening to contemplate that if unity and love had prevailed among Africans, many of the atrocities associated with slavery could have been prevented. While it is true that some individuals were forcibly kidnapped, it is important to acknowledge the heartbreaking reality that betrayal by their people played a significant role in this dark chapter of history. Moving on. While the exact origins of slavery remain unclear, did you know that the questionable practice of slavery made its way to America around 1619? It seems some folks thought it was a budget-friendly method of acquiring labor. Strong men and women were selectively captured and forced into slavery, resulting in a significant loss of Africa's most capable individuals. With an estimated 68 million Africans forcefully taken as slaves, the continent was deprived of its most able-bodied individuals. That means Africa was left with the senior citizen and shuffleboard crowd, while the continent's most able-bodied were off toiling away elsewhere. Those left behind were often the elderly and feeble, unable to contribute significantly to the continent's growth and development. This depletion of human resources further compounded the devastating impact of slavery in Africa. Surprisingly. Funny, right? Well, during that dark era, a significant number of slaves were either kidnapped, betrayed by their own leaders, or simply given away. What's truly astonishing is that among those captured were kings and princes, genuine royalty taken from their thrones. However, to the white men of that time, all people of African descent were deemed the same, regardless of their titles or status. Picture this: you find yourself on a slave ship, face to face with someone who had a personal grudge against you, someone who played a role in your sale. At that moment, you both cease to be anything more than slaves in the eyes of those overseeing the ship. It's no wonder that conflicts erupted, resulting in countless civil wars on board, and tragically, many lives lost. The desperation and desire for justice fueled unimaginable turmoil amidst the dehumanizing conditions of the slave ships. And if the slaves thought that in any way they could flee from their slavery, then they were in for it. This is because slave owners indeed saw their slaves as investments, and when a slave dared to escape, the consequences were severe. They employed various tactics, including setting traps in the fields akin to hunting animals, to recapture runaways. Bloodhounds were unleashed to track down escapees, subjecting them to terrifying chases. Once caught, the punishment inflicted upon them were cruel and brutal. Whipping was commonplace, often exceeding the limits of human endurance. In the most harrowing cases, runaway slaves could face death sentences. However, the death they faced was far from swift or merciful, prolonging their suffering and serving as a horrific deterrent to others contemplating escape. Now, if you thought these facts are mind-blowing, then wait till you hear this next fact. But before we move on, what do you think would be the most cunning and daring method a runaway slave could use to outsmart bloodhounds and escape their captors? leaving everyone astonished. Share your creative and imaginative ideas in the comments below, and let's see who can come up with the most exciting escape plan. Next on. Regrettably, it is a well-known fact that many enslaved individuals, particularly women, endured unimaginable sexual exploitation and abuse. They were subjected to constant rape, with no recourse or justice to be found. Tragically, if these women became pregnant as a result, their children, known as mulattos, would often be taken away from them and forced into labor within the household. This heartbreaking separation meant that these children rarely had the opportunity to form meaningful relationships with their own mothers. The deeply disturbing realities of slavery and its lasting effects on family bonds and personal connections are truly disheartening. Human beings were marketed as sexual commodities, and this was certainly one of the most depressing parts of the research, as you can imagine. Worst of all, the harrowing reality is that when slaves were captured and forcibly sold, many of them were determined to resist their fate. Some resorted to desperate measures, choosing to throw themselves into the sea rather than enduring a life of slavery in a foreign land. The number of lives lost in these acts of defiance is estimated to be staggering, as countless slaves never reached the safety of the shore. In their quest for liberation, some slaves also resorted to hunger strikes, utilizing this form of rebellion to express their resistance. The unimaginable suffering and despair experienced by those trapped in the clutches of slavery are truly heartbreaking to contemplate, leaving us with a haunting glimpse into the atrocities they endured. When we hear the term breeding, disturbing images indeed come to mind, and unfortunately, during slavery, those images reflect a cruel reality. Slavery encompassed the existence of breeding farms, where the strongest and most capable men were forcibly designated as breeders. This deplorable practice aimed to produce more enslaved workers for the benefit of the slave owners. It is essential to recognize that this method involved non-consensual sexual acts, amounting to a form of sexual exploitation. The sheer disregard for the humanity of enslaved individuals exhibited by slave owners through this sickening practice is both repugnant and deeply unsettling. It serves as a stark reminder of the profound injustice and cruelty inflicted upon human beings during this dark period in history. Now, imagine you have the power to travel back in time and confront a slave owner who operated a breeding farm. What bold and creative action would you take to dismantle their operation and provide justice for the enslaved individuals? Let's keep the conversation burning in the comments section as you share your imaginative solutions. Remember, history has much to teach us, and it's our duty to confront and learn from these harsh truths. Together, let's keep exploring the depths of history, making sure we never forget the lessons of the past. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next adventure.